Hey folks, this is Dr. Walker from denwalker.com. Welcome back to the channel. Before I get too far into this video, if you like what we're talking about, give me a thumbs up and a like so I can continue doing what we're doing here, and I like what I'm doing, so I hope you like it as well. Anyway, earlier this week I got a question about acidic foods, and there's some confusion about that. I thought I'd put a little clarity to it if I can. So remember that the body's pH is about 7.4. So too far below that mark, you run the risk of some bad things to include cancer. And I posted something this week earlier that implied that if you had cancer, do not give cancer what it likes, which is really low pH or acidic environment and low oxygen state. So I said, do not give cancer what it likes, which is really low pH. And again, the body's pH is about 7.4. If you drop too far below that, down by 7.0, 7.1, which is considered acidic, then you run the risk of some problems, to include malignancies. So if you can keep your pH more neutral, more basic, the better you are. Now, there are some processed foods, and in fact, many processed foods are termed acidic. Specifically, things like tomato paste, tomato sauce, very acidic. Frozen foods, frozen dinner, very acidic. Most juices, orange juice, pineapple juice, canned things, very acidic. Candies, cakes, pies, all of those things are highly processed, and the pH is low, or they're very acidic. And they're acidic partly because they have added sugar or high sugars generally. They have preservatives, they have pesticides, they have insecticides associated with it. And again, very highly sugar-based product for most of those things, and so they tend to be very acidic. And so some person was asking, essentially, pH of many seafood can also be very low and very acidic. So what's the difference? So there are some very acidic natural foods that we all consider to be pretty decent for you. For example, fermented foods, nattokinase, for example, or other things include things like sauerkraut or kimchi, limes, lemons, oranges. Not really bad for you, right? Those things, I think most people tend to say those can be eaten with some degree. Not every day, obviously, but if you're doing it not daily, I think for the most part, people would consider those things to be, although acidic, tend to be pretty good for you. So those are a pass. Also remember that most foods that are natural, that are acidic, have the other good things, to include vitamins and minerals. All of those things are in those foods naturally. So processed foods, by definition, have been stripped many times of all of those natural things, the natural vitamins and minerals in those things, and they add those preservatives and additives and whatever else you want to add to that. Sea salt is a great one, or your table salt is a great one. What they have done is they've removed all 80 plus different trace minerals in salt, right? All of it. Just took the whole thing out. They added some iodine and added what we call an anti-caking agent, which turns out to be ferric acid for the most part. And again, the acid part is the concerning part of that table salt. And they sort of demonize things like Himalayan salt and Celtic salt to be sort of less than, or less, not as good as table salt, which I think is it's a farce. But the point, though, is that when you have highly processed foods, acidic processed foods, they have been stripped of all their natural benefits, health benefits to those things, and you're left with what they add to that, versus natural foods, some of which, yes, can be acidic, but those also have the necessary vitamins and minerals in those things naturally. So if your choices were to have something that's processed and acidic and natural and acidic, always lean towards the natural and acidic sort of things. And stop and think about it. Think about the last 24 hours. What natural foods have you eaten? The point is that we tend to eat a whole lot of processed foods, Pop-Tarts, cereal, oats, right? Frosted Flakes. All of those things are highly processed, high sugar content, additives, preservative, pesticides. All of those things have been sort of involved in all of those processed foods, making them very bad for you, for your system. And again, think about the last 24 hours. What have you had in the last 24 hours that was natural, and how many of those natural foods in the last 24 hours had been acidic? The point is, you're eating a whole lot more acidic foods that are processed than you are eating natural foods that are acidic. So anyway, hope that helps a little bit. And and if you're dealing with a known cancer, yes, I would look at and remove as much as I can of all processed foods, and that's to include those that are acidic and those are not acidic, right? Processed foods. The processed foods, again, they have a whole lot of unnatural things in there, and really the body doesn't know how to handle them, right? It doesn't know how to handle Pop-Tarts, right? But you give it some acidic food like, let's say, lime. The body has been used to processing in its system lime for thousands of years, right? So it knows how to handle limes. It doesn't know how to handle Pop-Tarts and Frosted Flakes, for example. It doesn't know how to handle those things wholly, and you get very little nutritional benefits from eating those processed foods. Anyway, thanks for listening. Hope that helps, Dr. Walker.